I am Anthony from HNE, and you are watching 10 Questions. Today, I am here with Thad, a senior 3D artist from Funcom. I will ask 10 questions about his experience in the video game industry, as well as what led him onto that path. Hi, Thad.
Hey, how's it going?
So, I have 10 questions for you. I ask everybody typically these same 10 questions. If you leave an opening, I may go with a follow-up. It's not hardball at all. This is very straightforward. But my first question to you is, when and where was your first gaming experience?
So my first gaming experience, at least that I can remember, is I went to my grandparents' house, and I was probably 5 or 6 years old. I couldn't have been more than 7 years old, and my uncle had just bought the Pong console. I don't know if you'd call it a console, but it's actually, the whole system was just for the game Pong. And we played that. We hooked it up to the TV, and I think we played that all summer.
Because I was like, I know they're like they had an Atari bundled with Pong, but you're telling me it was just straight up just Pong.
Yeah,
now, what type of controller did it have on it? Was it an Atari paddle controller type of situation, or was it the one with like the little box with the little stick on the side?
No, it had a paddle controller. I remember that pretty clearly. Yeah.
Okay. So, what type of gaming experiences do you prefer? They could be anything from classic tabletop, cards, video games, virtual reality, whatever. I can clearly see behind you figures, little like. Are you playing Warhammer, War Machine, anything like that, or?
Yeah, I'm really into all that stuff. I love miniatures. I love painting them, and I just like that. To answer the question too, basically board games and miniatures, all that are currently what I'm probably into the most, just because it's tactile, and when you work on a computer all day, it's kind of nice to actually hold something and be around people and have social interactions. So I found that I enjoy that kind of thing a lot more now.
Okay. So what led you to get further involved in gaming to the point that you're actually working in the industry?
Well, it was quite a few things. I mean, I guess the most predominant one was I'm a child of the 80s, and I grew up going to the mall and the arcade. And I think I was 10 years old when I got an NES, so I kind of was growing up right when video games were kind of blowing up in the culture. And so it was a huge part of my life. And as I got older, I knew I wanted to do something creative and something to do with art, but I didn't know exactly which direction I wanted to take that. And for a while, I wanted to do movies and animation. But at some point, as I was about to leave college, I thought I wanted to try out the game industry, and so that's basically how it all happened.
So what type of education do you have, and then did it help you get your job?
I have a bachelor's of environmental design from Texas A&M University, and no, it did not help me get my job. But I'm really glad I went, and I'm glad I got the degree. It's definitely good to have a fallback plan. But I already knew at the time that I wasn't going to do that. It was the closest thing to art that school had, and my whole family had gone to school there, and I had friends already going there, so I decided to go there primarily for that reason. But at the same time, there weren't schools back then for video game development. I mean, I can't think if there were any actually, and there were only a few or maybe a couple for actual animation and computer graphics in general. So I basically had to teach myself everything related to what I actually wanted to do. And because of that, I think it increased my chances of really getting a job in the industry.
Okay, then I have to ask, environmental design like landscaping, or was it, because it sounds like it's a computer course, but it actually sounds like you're designing landscapes.
That's very close. It's basically architecture combined with the landscaping, so it's the whole package. We did everything from architecture to landscaping, the whole thing, and just the whole environment, basically.
So what is a typical day like at your job? And if there is no typical day, what general tasks must you undertake?
For me right now, a typical day is, meetings, which probably is true of anybody. And then I'm only in those for a short period of time. And then most of my day is spent right now doing a lot of technical work, because we're early in this project currently, and I'm helping work out some of the pipelines that we're going to use. I primarily work on vehicles for our game, and so we're figuring out some of the pipelines we're going to use to make vehicles for our game. And then I do a lot of documentation so that when we hire more people, they can just look at that and hopefully get up to date on what we're going to do. So it's a lot of technical work. And then if I'm not doing that right now, I am working on actual vehicle assets where I model and texture vehicles in the computer.
Your world is bleeding.
So can you tell us what games you've worked on?
Yeah, I've been doing this 20 years, so.
And any secrets would be great.
Well, I don't know if I have any, but I worked on EverQuest, and back in the day when all the MMOs came out, that was one of my first jobs, was working on EverQuest 2. And then I helped out a little bit on the EverQuest for PlayStation and regular EverQuest, and we also, let's see, what else did we do while I was there? There was a few other games that were developing at the same time, like the original Planet side. I didn't work on that, but occasionally we get pulled off and help out on the other teams. And then I worked on a game called Vanguard, which is another MMO. And after that, I worked on several MMOs that never came out. There was like a dry spell of MMOs getting canceled. And then I actually worked for Obsidian on an Aliens game that got canceled, which if anybody's worked in this industry, you're going to work on projects that get canceled, unfortunately. But then most recently I've worked on The Outer Worlds, which is an Obsidian game. And then we made a tank game before that called Armored Warfare. And currently I'm working on, I guess I can say this now, I'm working on a game based on Dune, the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
I was making sure it was D-U-N-E, not D-O-O-M.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it apparently was announced on our site, so I think I'm clear to talk about that. But I can't really say what we're doing or anything in detail. But
I imagine there's sand involved.
Yeah, definitely.
Particle physics.
Yep.
So what excites you the most about your job? I kind of guess what gets you up in the morning? What motivates you? What do you really enjoy?
You know what? For me, it's well, I'm a creative person. I love making art, and that's a very big part of it. But even more than that, it's the technology. I love the fact that I get to work on the latest tech for games and usually for computers, because games drive a lot of what computers. At least video cards, they drive that in terms of pushing it forward each year in the technology. So it's really cool to be able to be on the cutting edge of all that stuff.
Okay. So what is your proudest accomplishment within the industry? And you have said some pretty big name games. So I'm right now just super impressed, but also, there has to be some moment that stands out for you.
For me, really what it is, it's more that I've been able to make a career out of this is what I'm proud of. Because if you know anything about the industry, it's got a really high turnover rate, and people don't stay in it very long. And just being able to do it for almost 20 years now, I feel very fortunate. And thankfully, I've never been fired or laid off, and that's almost unheard of in this industry. So I've had a good career, and that's probably what I'm most proud of. It's just hard to. Not many people are fortunate enough to be able to stay in the industry that long.
So mentioning that, we're currently recording this during the Corona COVID-19 crisis. So you've probably adapted to working from home now rather than in the. So how's that transition been from moving from the office to home?
Well, for me, it's a mixture of things. Like, on one hand, it's not a big deal because it hasn't affected work at all. Really, we're very team-based, and as long as we stay in touch through, we do our meetings through various programs and things like that, we actually communicate probably more than we did at the office. But the part that has changed is the lack of social interaction, and from that standpoint, I miss the office and being around all the people that I worked with. So, yeah, as far as actually making games, it hasn't changed much. I can do everything from home that I was doing at work, but the social interaction and then some of the teamwork aspects were definitely better at the office. So I think we'll see what happens here in the future, but hopefully we'll be able to do a little bit of both, get back to work.
Okay. So if it were up to you, what types of gaming and related technologies would you like to see in the future?
Yeah, that's a good question. Personally, I would like to see AI take a big leap forward, and I think we're on the cusp of that happening. And by that, I mean, I'd like to see what AI can do in creating more realistic interactions with NPCs. I'd love to see AI used to help generate content in the sense that it feels more handcrafted for these huge worlds that games are making now. And you basically, a lot of times, you can see how many hours and how much manpower it takes to make one of these games. But with AI being involved and possibly helping create some of the quests and all the various content, it's potential to actually, you have the potential to fill out these worlds much better than we currently can. So that's something I'm really excited about. And the other thing is just the way our tools are becoming more and more procedural. And by that I mean the way we generate content now, it's kind of similar to the AI thing I just mentioned, but the way we generate content now is a lot of handcrafted content. Like when I'm, as an artist, I'm basically modeling everything out by hand, but the tools have gotten better over time, and now we're starting to use more procedural tools, which means I can actually model one example of what I want out, and then basically run math through it, and it creates infinite versions of that object. So it does a lot, and it basically gives us a lot of variety, a lot of content with much less work. So in the future, I think there's going to be smaller teams for some of these huge worlds that people are making.
Okay. So if somebody also wanted to become part of the industry, be it to do what you do or something else entirely, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, so I get asked this question probably the most of any question, when people find out I'm in the industry. And I never want to give anybody bad advice, and I want to be realistic with people and honest. So what I would tell them, and what I usually tell people, the best advice I can give you is that if you want to do this for a living, make sure you absolutely want to make video games. Just enjoying games or playing games and being good at games doesn't mean you're going to like making games. So you really need to have a passion for whatever aspect of making a video game you want to get into, whether it's art, programming, or design. And speaking from an art standpoint, which is pretty much all I can speak to, is that you're going to have to really want it, because there's going to be a lot of competition. And it's a pretty cutthroat industry. You can't expect to just kind of stumble into it. So you're going to have to work hard, and you're going to have to, have confidence in yourself and basically push yourself. But it's definitely doable. And finally, the only other thing I can think of that was the good advice to give someone is, and this is probably the best advice I can give you, is that just being talented and just having skill and being artistically talented is great, but it's even more important that you know how to work with a team. So many times you'll find people who are just amazingly talented artists or programmers, and yet they do not get along well with other people. And making games is such a cooperative task that you really can't have a big ego, and you have to be able to get along well with other people and just be a down-to-earth, friendly person that's not going to cause a lot of drama and be difficult to work with. And it's surprising, you wouldn't think that would be a huge issue, but it actually can be, just because games are so difficult to make, that the better you get along with other people, the better chance you're going to have of getting hired. In times where I've actually been involved in hiring someone, I would much rather hire an artist who's slightly less talented, but doesn't have an ego and gets along well with people, than someone who is more talented and does have an ego. So that's the best advice I can think, is just remember you're not irreplaceable, that no one is, and the best thing you can do is actually show the company versus telling them that you're irreplaceable, by being easy to work with and just a valued member of the team.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah.
Okay, so if somebody wanted to look you up on the internet, where should they start? Now, you have ArtStation and LinkedIn, and both of your user or account names are Thad Clevenger. So anybody who wants to look up Thad, you can see the description and find his information. And thank you, Thad, for showing up. And for everybody else, I'll also include the information for Funcom so you can check out their games. Thank you for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching this video. We would also like to thank our contributors and patrons for supporting this video. If you wish to add to the discussion, post a comment below. Please remember to like, subscribe, and check out our other videos. Thank you for checking out our content. Before you leave, please remember to click like and then subscribe. If you want to receive notifications, do not forget to enable them by clicking on the bell. Then afterwards, check out our social media at HaslageNet and our website at haslage.net.